Opposition can be the fire that tempers the bitter sword. With this beautiful thought, welcome all, my dear friends. Let us continue our journey in the world of IPR by picking a specific rule of the Patents Rules 2003 as amended by Amendment Rules 2021. So friends, I have a question for you. Do you think that the word opposition always signifies or always implies something bad? No. If we can take some examples, for example, in our country, we can say that a strong opposition is a necessary safeguard for democracy. Not alone in our country, it is applicable to many more democratic countries as well. So, with taking this thought, let us proceed how this thought is applicable in our rule, that is patent rules. Okay, let us proceed. Okay friends, now we will see the same old slide that once we discussed in our lecture 1. Okay, so here let us refresh our memory so that it will be helpful for the present rule here we are going to discuss. Okay, so here we can see form 7a. Okay, try to differentiate. This is not form 7, this is form 7a. Okay, and whose title is representation for opposition to grant of patent. Okay, and the relevant section is section 25. Okay, and the title here is opposition to the patent. Okay, the relevant rule is 55 and the title is opposition to the patent. Okay, so we can very well establish a relationship between form 7a section 25 and rule 55. Okay, so let us proceed to the next slide. So today we have chosen rule 55, that is relevant to form number 7a and section 25. Okay, so rule 55 has the title opposition to the patent. Okay, and it comes from chapter opposition proceedings to grant of patents. Okay, and here as it signifies, actually rule 55 is substituted by patents amendment rules 2005, and this particular title, that is title of the rule 55, that is opposition to the patent, is substituted by patents amendment rules 2006. Okay, so better you can refer to the direct. Fine. Now, as I always do, I will go for the keywords for the specific subrules of Rule 55. Okay, so Rule 55 has 6 subrules. Let us go by the keywords or the key phrases one by one. Okay, so the keyword for subrule 1 is representation. For subrule 1a, this is no patent shall be granted. For subrule 2, this is request for examination. For subrule 3, this is notice to the applicant. For subrule 4, this is statement and evidence. For subrule 5, passing a order. And subrule 6 is actually omitted. Okay, so you have to remember only 6 keywords, and by remembering these keywords, you can very well recall the specific subrules of a particular rule. Fine. Subrule 1 says, representation for opposition under subsection 1 of section 25 shall be filed in form 7a at the appropriate office with a copy to the applicant and shall include a statement and evidence, if any, in support of the representation and a request for hearing if so desired. Okay, so here friends, just remember or just observe the keyword, that is representation. Okay, representation is the most significant word here. And representation for what? For opposition. And as per what? As per section 25 subsection 1. And that that shall be filed in or via form 7A, where? At the appropriate office. And for appropriate office you can refer rule 4, which describes about an appropriate office. Okay, with a copy to the applicant sorry, and shall include a statement and evidence, if any, okay, in support of the representation. That means if any document, that means if any statement, if a statement or evidence is required in support of the representation, it is given, and a request for hearing is also done if so desired. Okay, so you please read the sub rule, taking care of all the operators and punctuation marks. It will be very much clear by reading it the first time only. Okay, so let me read it again so that you will be more your understanding will be more clear. Okay, just take a look. Representation for opposition under subsection 1 of section 25 shall be filed in form 7A at the appropriate office with a copy to the applicant, and shall include a statement and evidence, if any, in support of the representation, and a request for hearing if so desired. Okay, here actually this sub rule is substituted by Patents Amendment Rules 2016. Okay, you can refer the direct for this. And the relevant section is 25. The title is Opposition to the Patent, and the relevant form is Form 7A, Representation for Opposition to Grant of Patent. And Rule 4 is for the appropriate office, or we can say the title of Rule 4 is Appropriate Office. So we can say the main uh, function or main task of sub rule 1 is representation, along with fulfilling this criteria. Fine. Okay, now is the time for sub rule 1A, and here we can say that sub rule 1A is, as a whole, it is substituted by Patents Amendment Rules 2016. Okay, and this says, notwithstanding anything contained in sub rule 1, no patent shall be granted before the expiry of a period of 6 months. Here it gives a period of 6 months from the date of publication of the application under section 11A. So you have to remember these two things here, that what is the period, that means we can say I'm reading it again. Notwithstanding anything contained in sub rule 1, okay, so that means sub rule 1 will stand on its own way. Okay, and here what will happen? No patent shall be granted before the expiry of a period of 6 months. That means the time period given is 6 months from the date of publication of the application as per section 11A, because section 11A is publication of applications. Fine. I think it is pretty clear now. Fine. Now, sub rule 2. The controller shall consider such representation only when a request for examination of the application has been filed. That means we can say this is a criteria which is to be fulfilled for the consideration of the representation by the controller, we can say, right? So that's why this is written like, the controller shall consider such representation only when you can underline this, only when a request for examination of the application has been filed. That means if a request for examination of the application is filed, then only the controller shall consider such kind of representation. Fine, fair enough. Rule 3 says, on consideration of the representation, if the controller is of the opinion that application for patent shall be refused or the complete specification requires amendment, he shall give a notice to the applicant to that effect. And this whole sub-rule is substituted by Patents Amendment Rules 2016. So you can just underline this word, that is refused, or this is subject to amendment. Okay, now I am reading it again. On consideration of the representation, if the controller is of the opinion that application for patent shall be refused or the complete specification requires amendment, he shall give a notice to the applicant to that effect. That means after the controller has considered the representation, then and he realizes that the patent shall be refused or it requires some amendment, then in that case he gives a notice to the applicant to that effect. Fine. So this is pretty much clear now. Now, subrule 4 says, on receiving the notice under subrule 3, the applicant shall, if he so desires, file his statement and evidence, if any, in support of his application within 3 months from the date of the notice with a copy to the opponent. Fine. So what happened? In subrule 3, a notice was given to the applicant in at this subrule, that is in subrule 4. On receiving the notice as per subrule 3, the applicant, if desires, files his statement and evidence in support of his application if required, okay, within 3 months. That means the time period is 3 months from the date of the notice with a copy to the opponent. Fine, copy to the opponent. Okay. Subrule 5 says, on consideration of the statement and evidence filed by the applicant, the representation including the statement and evidence filed by the opponent, submissions made by the parties, and after hearing the parties, if so required, the controller may either reject the representation or require the complete specification and other documents to be amended to his satisfaction before the patent is granted, or refuse to grant a patent on the application by passing a speaking order to simultaneously decide on the application and the representation ordinarily within 1 month from the completion of above proceedings. So friends, if you the main keyword, the primary keyword here is passing a speaking order, and these are the secondary keywords. If you just observe these keywords and read the subrule again, I think you can get the gist of this subrule. Okay, so here actually we know that up to subrule 4, the statement and evidence was filed by the applicant. Okay, so here what happens, on considering the statement and evidence filed by the applicant, okay, and the representation including the statement and evidence filed by the opponent, submissions made by the third parties, and after hearing all the parties, if so requested, the controller may reject the representation or um, require the complete specification and other documents to be amended as per his satisfaction before a patent is granted. Okay, or he can refuse the grant of a patent as well. Okay, by passing a speaking order to simultaneously decide on the application and the representation. And how it happens? It happens within 1 month from the completion of the above proceedings. Okay, I think now it is pretty much clear. So let us proceed. Now actually subrule 6 is omitted, and this is omitted as per Patents Amendment Rules 2016. Okay, so this way friends, all the subrules of Rule 55 are completed. Here is the Patents Rules 2003 as amended by Amendment Rules 2021. So, dear friends, I hope you must have liked it. So, I insist, please share your views, your compliments, your comments, your queries in the comment box. Okay? And keep interacting, keep learning. Thank you so much. God bless you. Jai Hind.